unlock mine. There we go. So how about we start with roll call of officers or delegates? Around the room.
John Scudder, Jay Bear, present.
Matt Cruikshank, District 2. All right. Oh, I even got oh yeah, I am District 2. That's right.
Oh, wait, the sheet. I have a sheet in front of you.
Oh, you even gave me my cheat sheet. You're awesome.
Say mine.
Yes, you do.
Mike Rayberg, District 5.
Diana Evans, District 4, Midtown.
Steve Horn, are you present?
Present.
Mike Finster? Absent. Bruce Bustamante? Absent. Debbie Rinke? Absent. Bob French? Absent. Did I skip anybody?
Winchester.
SJ, did you say?
SJ, are you online? No, SJ, absent. Do we have a 1, 2, 3? We have a quorum. Okay. Public involvement announcement. AMS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are presented by staff or consultant. After the committee discusses the business item, the public is invited to formally comment. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak on the topic. A couple of housekeeping items. If you are joining us virtually and are not a member of the committee, please turn your camera off when you are not speaking on an item. If you are joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6. And with that, just remind everybody to put your phone on silence as well. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second? Is there any discussion or changes we need to make? Hearing none, are there any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. Next, we'll move to item 4, approval of our last two, I think we had a special meeting and our quarterly meeting. So the 1/10/23 and 2/21/23. Can I get a motion to approve both sets of minutes? So again, we make the motion, second the motion, and if we have any discussion items on the minutes. So can I get a motion to approve those last two meetings?
Steve Horn, motion to approve.
Thank you, Steve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions, comments about the minutes? Corrections? Hearing none, are there any objections to approving January and February's minutes? Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved. We'll move to 5A.
And Matt?
Yep.
For clarification on that, Jim Winchester is here.
Oh, he is.
Yes.
Okay, and we've made note of it.
Yes.
So action 5A, we had a memo, 2024-25 Unified Planning Work Program narrative. Would you like to?
Sure, just brief view on that. The UPWP is it used to be a 1 year and now it's a 2-year work, the 2-year budget and work program for what staff is going to work on. So this committee usually reviews it. It's time to, it's out for public review right now for the 2024-2025 work program. And in the memo, it shows you the tasks by category. And then the preceding item is the actual narrative on the UPWP.
So it's actually 2 whole program years. You said it's a 2-year cycle now.
2-year cycle.
2024 and 2025,
Yes.
not just an overlapping November to 24 to October of 25.
It's
2 full.
2 full years, yes.
So do we have any questions or comments on the 2024-25 Unified Planning Work Program?
So how do you, I remember from talking to Aaron once, I think the budgets are only approved year by year from FWHA, so how do you handle not having the budget approved for the second year?
This year, we the first year that they're approving a 2-year budget.
Oh,
So they are trying to make them aligned.
and is the budget,
The budget's not part of
Somewhere-
the public comment period. The budget's not part of this public comment period, just the narrative.
is it approved yet, or is it in process of approval?
It's in the process of being approved.
And there's not a draft or anything for the budget?
No, it doesn't go out for, the budget doesn't go out for public review.
This is Craig, I'm former UMass coordinator, planning director. The budget itself does not go out for public approval. I don't know if they have the number yet from FHWA, but it's just a narrative that has gone out that's required by the feds to have that out for public approval.
Thank you, Craig. And just to clarify, because no one sent in a resolution or anything, are we allowed to, can we take action?
Yes. Yeah,
You can
actually,
take action.
Make your comments now and vote on them, yes?
Okay. So do we have any, for those of you that reviewed the document, do we have any comments?
I did have another question. So there was a section that started on page 6 that was talking about planning emphasis areas, that the federal emphasis areas have been incorporated to the UPWP, but a lot of the there were 4 documents or 4 items with paragraphs about it, but there isn't any specific deliverable associated with them. So how will AMATs plan to make sure that they make these emphasis areas?
So that is a comment. And so I just think we treat each comments right there. We'll adopt each one as we go. I'm not really seeing is there any objection to go in that format, or would you prefer just to adopt all comments at once? And were you just asking a question, or were you making a comment, Anna?
Well, I didn't know who was gonna be here, so I have that question. So I guess, yeah, if we could have some information and examples of what I'm saying is there's a planning and programming guidebook, model, long-range transportation plans guidebook, regional models of cooperation, ladders of opportunity, access to essential services. So these are just topics. And I mean, I think the intent is to make sure all of AMAT's programs comply with these emphases. But I don't know how that is going to ensure that it's happened without a specific deliverable. That's my question. How will AMATs make sure that those areas are incorporated?
Your recommendation would be to see which sections apply to which emphasis areas that are required.
So if we make a comment, I assume that somebody from staff is going to make a response to comment. So I'm just asking open-endedly, how does AMATs plan to ensure that the emphasis are followed in their programs in the next 2 years?
If I can add a little bit. This is more recent, more stuff that Aaron has been doing recently, but these are things that are not especially prescriptive. Some of the things that Federal Highways requires are pretty prescriptive, like the planning factors above. They definitely want you to add those throughout when you're doing your TIP criteria and your MTP and all that sort of stuff. But these planning emphasis areas are fairly new, and they're wanting you to not really prescriptively add it in a specific way, but make sure that you're paying attention to it. So it's kind of a little early to say exactly how the feds expect the MPOs to dial those in specifically. This is honestly not unusual for federal highways to kind of say, hey, this is something that's on the horizon, we kind of want you to think about it. They did that with performance measures. They talked about the discussion of performance measures, and it was several years later before they came up with specific performance measures that each MPO had to track. So this is a little early, but
Well, I guess it is my hope that the AMAPs will start trying to figure out ways to do these things, even though it's not prescriptive.
Yeah.
You know, the federal highways would like us to, and I think I would be encouraging of this to be happening too, so.
yeah, I guess
And unless we have some vision of how AMAPs plans to do it, it will just.
yeah, I guess the only answer I would have is that this MPO is definitely, I mean, we're tracking it right here throughout the UPWP for the first time, this kind of language. They will definitely be paying attention to it, and it's part of what will go through the certification review, which I believe is sometime this year.
So are there any objections to adopting that comment? So hearing none, that comment is adopted. Next comment, question? Oh, go ahead.
The entire document, correct?
Yes, anything in it?
Task 150 is quite a ways into the document. It's the public participation plan. I found it to be very vague. And for diverse communities such as Mountain View, which is one of the more diverse communities in the country, where English is not the primary language. I think is an issue. And I looked at the products in the schedule, and I didn't get anything really much out of it.
Will you please restate your comment?
Comment is that I don't think the public participation plan is comprehensive in the way it is presented. It may be, but what I'm reading is not, there doesn't appear to be an effective communication.
Thank you, John.
For a diverse community, I think.
Yeah. So hold on. So raise your hand, Craig.
So just so you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, you probably have seen it, but there is an AMATS public participation plan. It is one of the 4 core documents that AMATS has to create. So there exists a current public participation plan. I believe that Johnny is going to be working on updating it this year. It's a pretty thick document. It's got a lot of information related to all this stuff. This is just the language that's here in the work program that says staff is going to be tasked with updating this year.
Yeah,
So-
I can speak to that a little bit too. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, so I was in charge of doing the last public participation plan, which we did, and then Christine is going to be doing the new one. And so, but yeah, as Craig mentioned, this language it's basically just stating the tasks sort of at a very broad overarching level. So we're not digging down into the details of all of the equity and pieces and how we make sure that we are hitting all of our goals and objectives regarding equity and all of our objectives. And so it's very vague. I don't know if you were asking for it to be more specific. That could probably be something that's changed in those bullet points. But I can tell you that the existing public participation plan is, we received an award on it last time we did our certification because it was really progressive in its approach to that type of planning. So making sure we're hitting all of our EJ areas and doing everything we can do to try and engage all of our stakeholders, so.
Dana, did you want to comment before? Do you have anything to say? Just making sure. I didn't know if you had your
Well,
hand up.
I was just clarifying for John that
Oh, got it.
he mentioned the word diversity in this statement, so.
Thank you.
Go.
Yeah, I've got a question, because I'm very familiar with Mountain View area because it's impacted by the area installations compatible use zones, which is primarily aircraft and noise, and to the underserved community of Mountain View. And so some of the things that we've done is gone into the library in Mountain View with multiple language translators. Has anything been done like that, similar to that?
Yeah, we have translated the document into, I think the last one,
That's what
yeah, we
Okay.
did, we did translated it into, I believe, 3 different languages, including Spanish and, is it Tagalog? Tagalog. But I was gonna say, if you have a suggestion, or we haven't started that effort yet, so if you have a suggestion for a language you'd like it to be translated in, or anything like that, there'll definitely be an opportunity to engage.
What I'd like to see is to go out to the community
Yeah,
and versus having a meeting here is for many, is worlds away,
right, so go where our.
go to
institutions
the
are.
communities that
Yes.
are underserved.
Yeah.
That's like the comment I would have.
Right, and Christine actually, so it's really good that she's doing this update because she's done a bunch of new updates for AMATs in general, just to have us be able to engage with people and that don't have the resources to come to our meetings, or don't, maybe don't even have a phone. So we're definitely doing a lot more to go to where folks are to help them become involved.
So John, what would you like to be, you asked a question and I think you had some responses. Is there any official comment you would like to have?
I think that maybe when they're done with the revision, I'd like to hear a presentation of, the public participation plan, or how it's being communicated to the public.
Perfect. Are there any objections to adopting that?
I have a question though, so it's the public participation plan go under public process? I mean,
Yes.
if there are, so there'll be time to comment.
So,
on the plan.
yes, and I'll just also state that, so since it's not a primary plan, it's a secondary plan, but as a secondary plan, it has a formal process, and which is in the public involvement plan right now. You can see the outline of the process, and part of that is to be presented to and reviewed by all of our committees, including this committee, and give people a chance to comment. And it also goes through a 30-day public comment period before it's adopted, so definitely hits all those markers.
So your point was well taken, but still, that was your comment you had. So are there any objections to adopting that comment? Hearing none, John's comment is adopted. So additional questions on this document or comments?
I guess just one question.
Go ahead.
Mike Rayberg. Is this a place to dig down into what the specific activities are doing, like questions about the activity, or is it just to say, hey, we like the list, the plan looks good? Because I have some specific questions about a couple of the items. Is this the place for that?
I think it's kind of touching on, yeah, I think it's a great time to ask it, right or wrong, let's get it out.
Okay. The one thing, the transportation demand model, I know that we talked about a lot for Mountain View and the Seward Highway going through it. Do we run the transportation model now after every piece of work that's done? Because it says in here that the plan is to start running the model every time. So I'm just kind of curious if that's different.
John Cecil, so holder of the transportation demand model. So right now we're in the process of updating the model to a 2020 base year, and that effort is tied to the MTP update. So as we get those projects through the tip, we'll be able to analyze those and see what's happening with traffic flows.
Okay, so it's an ongoing thing.
Yes, ongoing, yeah.
And there's under bicycle and pedestrian, there's a part about safety education. I don't know if anyone's here to address, is that safety education directed at pedestrians and bicyclists, or is it also directed at drivers, at road planning, at systems? Is this strictly for the pedestrians?
So I'm not sure what are you referring to, just the non-motor, is it under the non-motorized element or?
It's very near the top of the list of the numerous categories that are in the list starting on page.
Okay, it might be, if it's under the safety plan, well, and probably both, but non-motorized and safety plan. We are working on the safety plan now, and I'll be giving a brief update on that at this meeting, but no, our reach is to all transportation modes. And so that is our overarching safety plan goal, is to hit all modes and improve safety for all modes and do education and outreach for each mode. So, but if it's under the non-motorized, I would have to see, it might be specific to biking and walking.
Okay, yeah, it's under the third item, bicycle and pedestrian
What task
facilities.
it's under? Oh, yeah, what task?
It's on page,
You know what task it's under?
I did not look at a task. This is under the long list that says looking forward, starting on page,
Facility.
yeah, just talking
and they're
about
not numbered.
provide safety education for public
There's no
health.
page number here.
Yeah, so it's under non-motorized.
Just looking forward to things that are in the whole UPW.
So you have additional,
Just the basic question is it only directed, is the safety education only directed at bicyclists and pedestrians? Or is it also directed at drivers and also directed at the decisions made when we plan how roads are redesigned and such? Like,
Yeah.
this is, I would hope that we'd be talking outreach to drivers about bicycles and pedestrians, as well as reaching out to pedestrians.
Right,
And
so,
bicyclists.
yeah, so broadly, yes, all of our safety education is directed towards all modes.
Okay,
And then we could do some particular specialized activities towards certain modes, like transit or biking. We've done stuff in the past where, and I don't know if we've included this in the UPWP, but where programs go to schools and educate kids about bicycling or safety or how to, bike safely or something. So certain pieces might be directed towards a certain user group like that. But broadly speaking, all of our safety initiatives are all modes.
go ahead, John.
Did you get your question answered first?
I think so.
The question I had is there any effort on electric bicycles, because they're gaining popularity? I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think the majority of people use them wisely, but I have seen young adults with electric bicycles.
So John, just before you keep going, Mike, you had some comments right there. Were all those answers sufficient, or did you want to have those as public comments?
I think the only comment I'd like to retain is if we're working on bicycle and pedestrian safety education, that education also be directed at vehicle drivers. That's a tight way to explain it.
Thank you. Are there any objections to adopting that comment? Hearing none, my apologies. Go ahead.
I think it's great. Is there any efforts for electric bike education?
That's a really good question. We have some goals for electric bike policies in our non-motorized plan. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. I'd have to go back to the plan and look. But we are also developing a recreational trails plan. And I feel like, especially on our trails, which I think is where we have more of a user conflict for electric bikes and pedestrians, that we will have to be looking at developing some more policy guidance on how those bikes are used, because I know that there is a conflict sometimes with people that aren't, they're using responsibly and stuff. And so we have to work with traffic also to try and dial down on what those policy recommendations would be. But I think that's something we're probably going to work on in our rec trails plan, which is gonna be starting, probably in the fall.
And did you want to adopt that as a comment, or was that just a question?
I'll take a comment.
Okay,
When it's developed, it's not in there. I want to make sure there's a record that it was brought up.
100%. Are there any objections to adopting John's comment? Hearing none, it's adopted. Do we have anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll get back to the agenda here. We'll move to item 6, projects and plan updates.
Can I ask for public comment on the item first?
Oh, thank you. Do we have any public comment with 5A? 2024 Unified Planning Work Program? Is there anyone online? Hearing no
Hey, Matt.
public.
Matt, this is Steve.
Go ahead. Steve.
This is a minor comment, but we referred to no page numbers. I don't know, pages 9 and 10 didn't have numbers. That's very minor, but just something to fill in. And then I just had a question, and this really is not a comment, but the question, page 11, TSMO, management and operations stakeholders, refers to management and operations stakeholders. I was just wondering, it's like line 3 of TSMO. The question is, who are those stakeholders, management and operations stakeholders and planners? I'm just curious. That's my question.
TSMO, yeah, so Transportation System Management and Operations Study. So there is a technical advisory group for this plan, and there are traffic both from the Muni and DOT that sits on that, transit. It sits on that advisory committee as well, in signals, in PMME, and then in traffic engineering. So those are stakeholders that have participated in the development of that plan.
Okay. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Was that just a question, or would you like to have that as a comment for clarification of what the intent was, the management operations stakeholders?
I would say it's maybe just a clarification that, for example, XYZ would be stakeholders. Pretty minor comment, but.
Are there any objections to adopting that comment? Hearing none, Steve's comment is adopted. And we had no public comments, so we'll move to 6A, projects and plan updates. We'll start with Safer Seward Highway project introduction.
So,
Is that me?
Shannon McCarthy
Oh.
is online, I think she'll cover that, and then.
Apologize for not being there in person. My name is Shannon McCarthy, and I'm with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. This project is a really interesting one because it is a statewide project. We have a team from across the department working on it. I'm part of that team, and I wanted to, is Mr. Lucan available and ready to go?
Sure.
And just to continue, as you guys know, that this section of Seward Highway is a highway safety corridor, and there's been a lot of discussion over the years of how to improve it. And that's what this team is focused on, is making those improvements. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Would you like this?
No, you can just tell me when.
Okay, very good. As Jenna said, I'm Mark Lucan. I work with Michael Baker International, and I'm supporting HDR, who our team is supporting really part of the DOT team, looking at this project and moving it forward. I think it's appropriate that we are briefing every AMATS committee, and today briefing the Community Advisory Committee because I believe this project really impacts our community and will be very impactful to our community. So go ahead, first slide. So here's just a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the history. We'll talk about the scope of the project, its purpose and need, as we've identified it up to this point, who the stakeholders are, and our next steps as we move forward with this project. So as you can read, I won't read all of these, but this thing's been around for almost 20 years. Looking at this section of road, in 2006, it was designated as the first safety corridor, primarily because of the elevated rate of fatal and major injury crashes, and those have since it was designated as a safety corridor, some of that rate has dropped, but it's still known for, unfortunately, the fatal and major injury crashes along the stretch. In 2017, there was 2013, they began the Lindy Corner project, which was just a small section of the larger section we're looking at now, 105 to 107. And then in 2020, that project grew and again, based on the results of the environmental assessment that was done in 2017, and extended another 2.5 miles, so 105 to 109. Ultimately, the department decided that, let's just look at this entire corridor. Milepost 98.5 to 118, roughly Bird Flats to Rabbit Creek, as it says there. And so that's where we're at right now, is working on this new environmental assessment for the project. And we have begun the public and agency scoping, and this is part of that. Go ahead. So here's what, just to give you kind of the big picture view of what we're looking at. 98 is roughly the point where probably that last project was done, just before it moves into 4-lane, or I guess, 4-lane passing lanes down there south of Bird, and then works its way north all the way up to the Rabbit Creek intersection, basically is the 118 mile marker there. So that's a pretty extensive section of roadway, but yet it's a roadway that should be incorporated or in this project, and so that's what we're looking at. Here's the draft purpose and need, and really, as I already indicated, it's really about safety. We want to make this a section of road that is useful and safe for all users of this highway. There are some deficiencies in design, and so this project would update those to bring it to current design standards, and then ultimately or finally reduce congestion. That is certainly a tertiary need, but yet as many of you or all of us have experienced, especially in the summertime, there can be quite a bit of congestion on this road just because of the popularity of the Kenai Peninsula, and especially weekends, it tends to get pretty busy. Go ahead. So we have reached out to a group of folks, and some of them are actual federal and state agencies. Others are organizations that we know are impacted or will be impacted by this and have an input to this project. So this is the list of folks who are going to be we put together as what we've identified key stakeholders. We will be meeting as a stakeholder group roughly once a month, and with the idea that we are going to be it really truly is a working committee, very much like this committee, to identify issues, hopefully identify solutions to those issues, we'll use them to do certain research projects as they come up. But the intent is to be as transparent as we possibly can so that all people, all folks impacted by this project have an input, and so that we get to a project that is going to be beneficial for everybody. Go ahead. So we're right now, as I mentioned, we're in the scoping process, and hopefully we're going to schedule a stakeholder working group kickoff meeting here soon. But for folks who are interested in this project, you can go to safersewardhighway.com. That's the website that's been set up for this, and it was just recently updated. I believe we've kind of stopped at least the initial comment period and on the scoping letter, and so if you have comments, though, you can go to info@safersewardhighway.com and get input there. I believe that's it for the briefing. It's just really, as Shannon said, it's to introduce you to the project. And but I'm happy to try and answer questions if you have some.
I had one. I read through the project materials. I didn't get to go to the online or the in-person. And they mentioned something called Transportation X. And I Googled that on both the DOT website and federal highways and just the internet in general, and I could find nothing on what exactly Transportation X is. It sounded like it was process oriented. And
yeah, I think you've identified that correctly, and the fact that this is, this is kind of the commissioner's approach to this to make it more of a holistic team effort to this project.
so there's not a write-up that prescribes what the
I don't think
process
we're at the prescriptive stage yet. I think that it's still somewhat conceptual, but yet, again, his idea is that he wants this to be a much bigger effort, and those, I can't necessarily speak for him, but I think, if you were to ask him, he might tell you that he sees even the stakeholders as part of the team. He wants this to be a team effort.
Do we have, is there a timeline? Yes, first question, for design completion?
Well, we're still in the preliminary design, so this is really just the environmental assessment. And I think we're still working on that.
We're talking schedule, years kind of thing?
I think, again, probably looking at least 2. Hopefully, no more than that, but, that's, I think, what the target is right now.
Do we have the construction funding? I mean, I know we don't have any professional estimates of what this is going to cost, but are these potentially funded projects, or is this?
Well, so this is a STIP project, and so that funding is, has been identified, and therefore, under the rules of a fiscally constrained program, it's been, budgeted in that way.
So design was funded and construction was funded?
Again, it's identified.
Gotcha.
Right.
Do we have any questions, comments? It's a big one.
Yeah, this is Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, yeah. So the question I have, I looked at the stakeholders slide and I might have missed it, but is Girdwood a stakeholder like Girdwood 2020? I don't even know if Girdwood 2020 exists anymore, but I worked with them a few years back.
Yeah, no, it's the Girdwood Board of Supervisors that are included. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. For Wingards up there as the point of contact.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So our next landmark is, what's the next deliverable?
Well, the next deliverable, hopefully, is going to be a stakeholder kickoff, to bring everybody in ideally get everybody in the same room and, get to know one another and start working this project. But also the scoping is the next step in the actual formal process as well.
So just a recommendation, Federation of Community Councils, obviously they're not a stakeholder, but they'd be very interested and they have a very broad mailing list. And I think a lot of people across Anchorage would be interested in this project. So maybe as updates are done, just notice to the FCC for dissemination would be nice.
And we have a broader list of, you know, what we would consider interested parties, and the FCC is definitely on that list.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions, comments?
I guess, so who is the prime, the DOT is doing the design, or what is the project team?
So we have, you know, DOT are part of the project team, HDR.
So the roles along with who's on the team, what is DOT's role? Are they just project manager, or are they doing house design?
So we're not to the design phase yet. So HDR is working on some preliminary design, you know, to support the environmental document.
And Michael Baker is?
So we're helping with public involvement, agency, facilitation.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're also helping with, we have an environmental manager who's helping with, write the environmental document. And we're also probably going to help out with some hydrology and hydraulic and H&H work.
Here's our chance.
Go ahead, Steve.
This is Steve again. Yeah. So I'm curious as to who the DOT project manager is.
I would say, we'll let DOT speak.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to hop in there, Shannon. So Sean Baskey, DOT, head of the design section here in Central Region. So this project is a little bit different than a traditional project delivery team. And so it's a multi-region team that's been brought together to try to bring all of our strengths together to deliver, you know, a resolution to, you know, the problems that the community has down on the inlet there. So, you know, we've got Northern Region folks, we've got South Coast Region folks, we've got Central Region folks. Specifically, my role in it is just providing input, right? So we don't have a traditional project manager assigned to it because it's a group of individuals assigned that are something called an agile project delivery team. So it's a little bit different than a normal one. Normally you'd see a project manager for the department and even for the consultant team and come up here and talk about the projects, but it's not that kind of team. It's being used around the, you know, around the country to deliver difficult projects, and we're delving into.
Will there be a Pell part of this? Will there be a preliminary environmental linkage with this project?
It is my understanding that we are not going to have that.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. This is Steve again. It seems like this project does need a different approach, and I guess I'm not familiar with it, but that's very interesting.
And if I could jump in, this is Shannon McCarthy with DOT. That's essentially what Transportation X means. It's a high risk, high profile project that we're bringing a team of experts together to help solve. Obviously, this is a complicated corridor for many reasons, and that there's not a true, one person at DOT, one consultant. It really is a team of experts working together, and that partially is also to help protect the progress of the project. In that, if one person leaves, it doesn't set us back by a year.
So one last question is, like, when we rolled out highway to highway, we ended up breaking it into smaller projects. Is this going to be kind of a similar design that turn this into a midtown congestion relief of a bunch of individual projects with one large overall scope?
I think that's part of what we're trying to scope right now, but I would anticipate that that's probably what you're gonna see down the road, you know, once we get to into the design.
So not all or nothing, in other words, like when final plan is presented, there's gonna have to be decisions made at that point. Okay.
Okay, and if there's not any other comments,
Thank you.
thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Okay, so our next one is under project and plan updates. We have the safety plan and forum introduction.
Right.
Do you have a slideshow as well?
No, no
Okay.
slideshow, just have a couple handouts. So hopefully you all were able to grab a copy of these. So first handout is an update on the safety plan schedule. So that's our AMAS safety plan that I was talking about a bit earlier. And we kicked off this project. It's actually our first safety plan for the MPO here, so it's kind of exciting for us. But we kicked off the project in, I think it was February or late January. And so we developed a schedule and a timeline, and so we
Is it
are.
included? So I'm looking at the slides. Is it?
It's not
Okay.
on your slides.
Okay, yep, sorry, no, it's just this handout. So, so we have a timeline here. So we hired consultants. We hired Burgess and Nyepel to be our main consultants. We also have Kinney Engineering and R&M consultants as local engineering consultants on the project. We have developed a website. It is live as of this week. We also have developed a survey, a public survey. So those are both on the project website, which I have included on my next handout. But so anyways, we had our first stakeholder committee meeting at the end of March. We launched our website and public survey just this week. At the end of May, we will be having a BPAC safety forum. That's our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee safety forum, which is my next handout I'll talk about. But that's going to be happening in sort of conjunction with our safety plan efforts. It's not part of the safety plan scope of work, but it's sort of timely happening the same time. And that's going to be Monday, May 22nd this year. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening. It's going to be a virtual meeting. So everyone's welcome to join in that. And then as we're doing that, our consultants have taken a bunch of data. They're doing existing conditions analysis right now, and they're going to be taking that data, analyzing it, assessing it, and then presenting information at our June stakeholder committee meeting, which is coming up. And then we'll be taking some more information and drafting the plan, or creating the plan draft, which we will present in September at our stakeholder community workshop. We'll also be doing presentations to all of our committees, so we could present at this committee if you all would like that. And then we have a final stakeholder meeting in October to go over what we learned at our community workshop, and we'll be presenting the plan at that meeting as well, and then presenting the finalized plan hopefully at our December technical advisory and policy committee meetings for hopefully adoption. So that's our overall schedule. And right now there are a bunch of different ways that you can, or a couple different ways that you could get involved. So as I said, we just launched the website, and the second handout, which I have here, I don't know if didn't hand it out.
I was gonna ask you the website.
Okay, yeah,
Is there one
I
on
think
there?
Christine's gonna put it up on the screen too, in just a second.
Oh, sorry.
But,
Girls basketball.
this is a handout about the safety forum in May, it's coming up. Yeah, and Christine just put the flyer up on the website for folks too. So anyway, so we have safety forum, we're going to be talking about AMAT safety initiatives and having some presentations from our various stakeholder groups related to safety and our goals and objectives for non-motorized travel within our AMAT area. So again, that's May 22nd. It's a virtual meeting, and the time is 6 to 8 p.m. where you can join it. It's a Microsoft Teams virtual meeting, and you can find out about it, more information about it, and get the meeting link on the AMAT's website, which is just uni.org/AMATs. And we would love it if you would get on the website and check it out, and then give us some feedback, but then also take the safety survey that we have just posted. And it's pretty short. It only takes, 5 minutes or less, really, to fill out the survey. I think it's only like 10 questions. So, and that is, you can link to it on our website, or you can just go to this publicinput.com/P8858 to take the survey. And I think Christine's also helping develop a QR code so that you could just scan it with your phone too and take it on your phone. That's easier. So that is our update, yes.
Question, and maybe, are there more pedestrian deaths or pedestrian incidents lately? Or is it just that I'm paying more attention to them, or?
Yeah. So we have, we were just at our last biweekly meeting. We were kind of comparing some trends from when they did the Vision Zero analysis, which was in 2018, I think we published that, and the 2021 data that we have now. So we are seeing a decrease in vehicle and bicycle crashes, but unfortunately we're seeing a stagnant pedestrian fatality rate that we haven't been able to significantly lower since 2018. So we're kind of seeing the trend that, and what they saw a similar thing in 2018. So that's what we'll be addressing as we move forward, is kind of how we can work on lowering that pedestrian fatality trend. So I don't know that there are more. I would have to look at the numbers to say if we're having more than we were, but the trend has not moved.
I'm just, gauging whether we should have some additional follow-up
For
in this area.
pedestrian safety. Yeah.
Pedestrian safety.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what our team, so they're still in the data analysis piece of the project. So I don't know what tools and recommendations, policy recommendations are going to come out yet, but we should know more probably, I want to say definitely by the September meeting, hopefully more in June, we'll know.
My concern is on the roadways here in the municipality is that, I'm seeing more and more people come out of non-crosswalk areas and crossing the road and presenting, maybe not fatalities, but not accidents, close calls.
Right.
Where, people are having to brake. And that's where I think as a member of AMETS, we should have a concern. Roads are what we're responsible for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's always, seems to be we're trying to figure out, there's many factors, but the factor of the road design versus the factor of vehicle behavior and pedestrian behavior. And so, there's many factors to take into account, but we also definitely are going to be looking at design of our facilities and making sure they reflect the land use that's going on around them. So we'll be starting up our complete streets plan too, early next year, and that's going to take a deep dive into like for example, Tudor out here, you know, is the road designed in a way that supports the frequency of people trying to get across the road and the businesses and everything. So, so we're definitely taking a wide approach. And there's no one right answer, but for sure it's important and we need to make some improvements.
So the one comment that I have is I noticed in September, we have the stakeholder community workshop and just talking out your logic. So it makes sense that you have the bike and pedestrian advisory committee. Would we be potentially part of that or?
Yeah, we can, yep, so that was to highlight that we'd be presenting to that group at that time. But we can also present to this group if you want for us to come in.
Well, let me just ask, I know we have a lot of community representation with non-motorized in this group. Is there interest in that presentation?
Sure, I'm even wondering, I mean, can we have a joint meeting that time? I mean, we would be working in
You mean a joint
September.
presentation?
Yeah, I mean, we would be meeting around September too, wouldn't
You know, the bicycle advisory committee.
Yeah, our bike advisory committee meets in September, so we have never done a joint meeting before, but look into it for sure.
we? Might be kind of interesting to get the two groups together.
Yeah, it might, or if at the very least we can present twice, it's not a big deal for us to present twice, but we can look to.
Now we have, well, we've always had full-time bicyclists throughout the winter, but with the more and more winter bikes, there's more, it's now becoming a full-time, a full year-round biking community.
It is, for sure.
So this is Steve Horn. Just to have going back to John's discussion on statistics and just number of fatalities and accidents. Do you have any information regarding how Anchorage compares to other similar metropolitan communities regarding numbers of deaths and accidents?
Not off the top of my head, but I do know that the trends I think we are a little bit different here in that our fatality rates are not trending down for pedestrians. I think that in other areas there may be more equal bicycle and pedestrian fatality and injury or crash rates, but we are a little bit unique here in that we have pedestrians are definitely the user group that suffers the most in this area for whatever reason that is. I do know also that in other areas where they have been implementing more bike infrastructure in particular, there have been increased rates of crashes and fatalities, and that may be due to the fact that, you know, they're implementing more infrastructure and that just means more people are using it, which is what you want, more people to use the infrastructure, but unfortunately it does sometimes result in more crashes. So it's not it's not that you want to accept more crashes, but that's just can happen when you're implementing a lot more bike lanes and miles of motorized infrastructure.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Isn't there an annual safety statistics report that AMAPS does? I'm seeming to remember that one had been released recently and I never got to the right point of knowing, or maybe it's a statewide
It might be
safety.
It might be an HSIP, it might be DOT initiative maybe, but I don't think AMAPS does. We don't do a safety statistics.
Yeah,
Traffic.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is
Go ahead,
Steve, and I'm pretty sure DOT has some of that information.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the safety plan and form introduction? Hearing none, we'll move to our destination UMED updated event.
Afternoon, John Cecil again. I'm the project manager for the Destination UMED project, and I came and presented, seems like a few months ago about the progress we've been making on that particular study. And so we are hosting tomorrow, and I made a flyer for you that invites you to a community workshop. It's our second one, and it will be held virtually via Zoom. And so there's information on how you can access that meeting. We encourage you to participate about that and to learn about the latest deliverable that we're working on, which is coming up with the strategies, goals, strategies, and draft implementation plan. And so that the project management team and the advisory committee have had time to review that document. Now we're going to present it to the public and welcoming public feedback and comment on that document. And then the next step after that will be a final community meeting in June. The date hasn't been selected yet, but we're working on that. And that will then be the release of the final implementation plan for Destination UMED. So hope to see you there tomorrow online. Any questions?
So what is the funding mechanism for adopting any things that the working group wants implemented?
Yeah, good question. So the funding mechanism will be grants as well as the TIP. So there will be, we'll be looking at multiple funding opportunities to.
But the TIP is set for 2023 to 26. So
Yeah.
You have 4 years to wait for something to be.
Well, the TIP is updated
Every 4 years.
every 4 years, yeah. So there we'll have to be looking for other pots of funds to do things.
Do we have any other questions? Hearing none. Cecil, thank you.
John.
John,
You're welcome.
last name Cecil.
I
Yeah.
know. I'll be back again to brief you on the outcome of this and when we get closer to the June meeting.
Awesome. Thank you,
Stay
John.
tuned. You're welcome.
And next we have public input survey.
Yeah, and I'll just a brief survey that I can show you. So this is kind of an introduction to AMS has just I haven't pressed published, but our webpage is about to look different because the majority of the engagement is going to happen now in public input. And this is just a little survey kind of to get information from people. How do they want to be contacted? How would they like to contact us? We now have SMS texting that will be easy to do when we send out our surveys and engagement opportunities. Joni safety plan survey can be done on a website or a smartphone, but it can also be done on a flip phone with text messaging. And so that is the first plan that has its website within the public input platform. So everything AMATS works on from a planning perspective is going to be within this platform. So we can archive it together, we can look at the data together, and we can grow our engagement. So this is just kind of introduction. It's happening, and next time you look at our website, it might look a tiny bit different, and there'll be a huge bubble that will say AMATS Engagement Hub, and that will take you to that space.
Does this mean we'll still be doing Survey Monkeys?
Not Survey Monkeys, it'll
Yeah.
be through here.
Okay.
So that is,
Any questions?
This is Steve. So whose puppy dog is that?
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was, I guess
You didn't have to scroll down.
the scroll. Okay.
Probably one thing I didn't see.
Oh.
podcasting or,
Podcasting? So for how you want to be notified?
learn about information.
Oh, well, sure. Avon's at this point doesn't have a podcast, so this would be how could we give you information? To
Are you
advertise
considering
our
doing a podcast?
Not only, but, trying to think of the way they, you know, if I want to view a city council meeting, I gotta go online and I can watch it, you know, anytime I pretty much want, kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily a podcast, but it's a means that I get communication or I learn what's going on in the city,
Mhm.
you know,
Is it a recording?
it's a recording.
Yeah. And we do that, we put all of these meetings up on our website, so they are recorded, and then you could go at any point.
That's, okay. All right.
If Aaron did a podcast, I would listen.
We'll let them know.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, actually, probably interesting. Okay, and hearing no other comments. Next, we have general information, committee process. Says,
Sure, and this was something Bob French wanted on, so I don't know if we want to table it till the next.
yeah, I would
meeting.
say that's appropriate. We
Since
wanted
Ed's
to,
not here.
just so we can kind of keep the momentum, does anyone remember what the context of the process, on the last resolution that was being passed, Bob brought up an issue, a concern with our process.
Sure.
Do you remember roughly what, just so we can kind of be.
Yep. So you had two resolutions on the Seward to Glen PEL, and when you pass those, they went to the processes, they go to the TAC
That's-
and, for first review, and the TAC forwarded, decided not to forward those on, and they had requested that you revise them if you were gonna send them on. And so he was questioning that process and how the TAC could make that call ahead before it got to policy, so we were just gonna have that discussion. Nobody asked me to put that particular resolution back on your agenda today to revise, but that is what the TAC was requesting.
Well, I appreciate you putting on there because Bob did, I do remember that Bob did specifically want it as a future agenda item there, so thank you. Okay, so we'll put that as a future agenda item. Committee comments? Okay, not hearing any committee comments, public comments? Not hearing any public comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I knew, to adjourn.
Looks like I think you, Diana.
We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.